Hi, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, Chanpreet. It's been a while since we spoke. Exactly 2 days. I remember picking up the phone to chat with you about this very webinar, and we had so much to speak about. And I put it all down on a note and gave it to my team, and they were overwhelmed by the amount of number of topics we were going to cover. But I still want to cover it all because I want to grab every opportunity I have with you because there's so much that you have to offer. Welcome, and I hope we can, uh, you know, get a lot of interesting insights from what you have to say. So, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, which is in line with the topic today, is data is no stranger to media. This is what we were talking about on Saturday. Why do you think the importance of it has increased suddenly? It seems like overnight everybody's talking about media, data, media tech. So, what is your take on this sudden importance of data?
Thank you, Kavita, and thank you, team, for having me here today. It's really exciting to talk about media and data where it matters the most, right? Where data scientists and education institutions and startups are all coming together. Like you rightly said, Kavita, data has been no stranger to media, but there's also a paradox here that the media institutions, the content creators, have never been distributors and they have never really had access to their end consumers. If you look at the television era or the print era, the newspaper boy delivers the newspaper, not the news company. And when it came to television as well, most media companies went down because they would pay cable charges or carriage charges to cable companies, and they actually didn't know who their end consumer was. In a country of over a billion people, we had a few thousand set-top boxes which were tracking data. The explosion of data that has happened in the digital media industry and the two-way communication has actually put both product as well as data at the heart of the newsroom or heart of the content room as we speak. And because data is real time and communication is two-way, it was always one-to-many communication, right? Whether it was archaic in out of home or radio or here or in TV, here it is two-way and individual, right?
Yeah.
And how do you start making sense of so much data and at the same time keep in check your creativity, your gut, your cultural pegs is the big challenge. And so that is the main reason why data today is consuming a lot of attention, and rightfully so, for all organizations.
Sure. So I know that what you spoke about, which is the ease of access for data from a few thousand set-top boxes to real-time information with your connected TV and TV over
Yes.
the internet. I'm sure under the hood for companies like Viacom and other companies that you've worked for, there's a lot of things that companies are putting into play in terms of multidisciplinary teams to be able to harness this data. What do you think are the building blocks of being able to stride into the future stronger as an organization, given that this is the truth today?
So that's a really valid question, and I think there are two distinct users of our three distinct, sorry, users of our data. One is the teams that are creating the content, rightfully so, whether you're in the newsroom or whether you're in the content room. The second are the teams which are creating the product, because the
Right.
product, the user experience, the user journey is very critical. And third are the teams who are building a monetization track to the through the product, which could be either the subscription revenue or the advertiser revenue. We need to take all these three distinct user references to build dashboards and to build the entire data pipeline. I'll give you an example of some of the largest organizations I have worked with. One of the first things I come in and say is like, okay, so what is my user saying? And they're like, the app user says this, and the mobile web user says this, and the CTV user says that. And I'm like, okay, guys, somebody, can you please understand my question? And my question is, there is a user. How
Yeah.
we treat the user cannot be the user. That's the user journey.
Correct.
Having a single view of a user across platforms, then understanding content by region, by language, by genre, or in, let's take the case of a news platform, one of the leading news platforms in the country. Um, 2 years ago, and even till now, when we asked, how do we measure the success of what content is, we would still talk about visits to a page. Nobody was talking about the scroll length. Nobody was talking about time spent. So the measurement of success is more important than the data in itself. I think that is a learning that most media companies are going through. What are my KPIs, and how do I design the data lake for the KPIs is very critical. So user, advertiser, and product, and user journey. And subscription. These are different aspects. And today, data sciences team, with all due respect, are not there yet.
Yeah,
I think
a
we
long
could.
way to go. Long way to go. Yeah,
It's a long way to
especially
go. Yes, especially in
especially
digital.
in media organizations and in the media industry, right? And you were talking about how culture is actually one of the four players in the entire data play, in being able to apply it against the data. And this is where you're talking about your punts, and how where your gut feel comes in. And this is, we were talking about, does data really inform the creative process? And at the end of the day, you kind of go on your gut, and that comes from what you were talking about, which was culture. And you famously gone on record in an entire paper about localization. So, and we've been reading about Netflix and their investments, and all of us have been swooning over this whole Squid Game success. What do you think, and how do you think localization has a role to play in the way we understand data? Because it has to go deeper even within India as well, right? From towns to cities to the next billion online. What are your opinions on that particular topic, on localization, data, and culture?
I can write a thesis on this one, but I don't know how to answer your
Yeah.
question. Okay, so let me break this down. You asked two very different questions. The first question is, how does data back content decisions, and how do you handle it when it's more culture-led
Yeah.
vis-a-vis data-led? So
Right.
here's the first thing that happens, right? There are certain data signals that your users have been giving. Let me give you in case of with an example of Big Boss OTT.
Sure.
Viacom Digital Ventures, who took a really big punt, taking its biggest group property on OTT exclusively. Why did we have the confidence to do that? One, we had already reached 50% of TV watch time over a
Sure.
period of 4 years, right? Number two, we had realized that we're probably the only platform which is seeing massive interactivity while the content is on. Number three, 40% of our viewership was about behind the scenes
True.
rather than actually the episode. And what was the signal that people were giving us? It's voyeuristic content and people want more of it. Now, what
Yeah.
did we do? We gamified the content. Okay, we took a punt. The entire industry was like, how can they take the most important piece of content and then put it on OTT exclusively for 6 weeks before the main content hits? We
Right.
took that one and we gave it three different twists. One, we created a 24/7 live channel. More, okay?
Yeah. Not get better than that, right?
Yeah, like more of it, right? 32
Yeah.
cameras, that's equivalent of a IPL game, right?
Yeah.
That's how many cameras went in there. Number two, we allowed users to play a pivotal role in what was going to happen in the house, which was gamification, which was in line with the trend of how e-gaming and how interactive, immersive content and social viewing was taking over. Well, what are the results that we had? And but at the same time, we were very conservative because we were taking a punt and we couldn't afford the same level of investment that we make at a mass TV scale. What are the results? Our watch time went up 4x, Kavita, on the back of the 24/7 live channel. We created 15,000 user-generated views, video views, which we had never on a daily
This
basis.
is the kind of things every company, every media company strives to construct for itself, right? I'm going to insert a social media strategy. I'm going to insert a couple of influencers to get this going for us, and you just kind of
Yes.
load the.
But we created a blue ocean on the back of data, right?
Sure.
We knew romance works a lot, so we brought in the Jodi concept. in Big Boss season 15. So it works for our platform. It doesn't necessarily work for every platform, but what works for our platform, interactivity is our strength. And we know our users come to us for the interactivity. And we know that we are the home of Big Boss, and giving that extra to the fans would play, would go in our favor. And the result of it was a great success, both from subscription, advertiser, and new user acquisition point of view. However, now let me take you in a completely different direction. Okay. We were launching Vice in India in my previous role, and Vice is known for being the youth whisperer, right?
Right.
And we talk a lot about everything that the society kinds of shuns away, whether it is sex, it's drugs, it's gender, all of it, which is in the gray zone. And the question was, what should be our launch film? Right? And for us, we don't, I'm saying we because it was our baby. Yes. Yeah. And I was entrusted with this responsibility of starting the brand which the world reveres. And no pressure, right? No pressure at all. And I remember we didn't have data about India, but we just knew what Vice brand stood for. And if eventually the insight came in was that I don't know who my identity is today in India. And instead of launching with anything about drugs or sex or anything that people thought we would stand for, we said we're going to go with identity and not with gender identity. What is it to be a 16-year-old in India today? Okay. The other insight and my clear conviction came from the fact that I'm Indian. And if I want Vice to be an Indian brand, then I need to be local. And we tied up with Pepsi, and we decided to do something totally unique to track the journey of a young mountaineer climbing Kanchenjunga without oxygen support. Right. Two very different things that we landed up doing. We landed up getting 1 billion views for Ashok Vajpayee's track to Kanchenjunga. People thought I was crazy that we were doing this. They said we will, internally in the Vice content team, they were like, why are we doing this? I said, we're doing this because it's Indian, it's daring, it's not been done before. We eventually made it into a film along with Pepsi, and it hit the theaters. Yes, and it got 1 billion views. And that partnership was one of the best partnerships we entered into. And on the other hand, Raise Your Voice. What is it to be an Indian today? Got organic 3 million views, not heard of. So, that was not backed by data. You have to know who you are servicing, and then eventually you build the track. So now so we've addressed localization, we've addressed data, but I think eventually in the business today we are in, which is led by data, 3 things are very simple for us to do. And if we don't understand that, we are not in the right business. One, there are no more mass audiences. There are only interest groups. You and I could be pro organic movement. You and I could be the pro retro movement. We could be we could be in the runners club. We could be the LGBTQ activists. And I service you and your interest group, because content today is used for either educating yourselves or escaping or immersing yourself with what's going on in the world. I'm in the business of entertainment. And if I don't entertain you, knowing what community you belong to, I'm not actually serving you at all, because we are no longer in the business of providing functional services. We are providing escape, or we are providing entertainment. We are providing you with an opportunity to associate with a cause that you are, looking for. I mean, Puma is the largest selling shoe manufacturer in the country. Are they selling shoes? They're only selling culture.
True.
And data has given us that opportunity to understand what's going on in culture, not just from what our platforms do, but you have so much data, right? Social media, search, advertisers, first party data, buying data, Amazon, Flipkart, and then entertainment data. And imagine when you merge all of it, that unique ID, what it does for you.
Yeah. And there's a lot that's coming up as well in the industry, but there's a lot of stuff that's also brewing on the regulatory front, which means that companies like Viacom and other content companies will have to sort of ring fence their entire data and really understand it deeply. And like you said, and make it work for yourself, right? What works for somebody else may not work for you. What I really liked about what you talked about is, the concept of the universal feeling or universal insight applied to a global stage, where you're saying that being daring and adventure and the whole adventure spirit in your launch film for Vice is something, is a universal feeling, right? And you build it onto a global platform. Similarly, this whole voyeuristic behavior, trying to like figure out what's happening between couples is a very universal curiosity that everybody has, and you've given it a platform, and it's applicable globally as well. You see this happening a lot with content companies who are getting it right, this whole universal concept versus a global stage and marrying both of them together. Taking a little shift away from what's happening under the hood in media organizations, I wanted to kind of bring this back to something that you said in terms of, just doing regular grunt work, right? A lot of this audience that is watching us today in Nasdaq, a lot of them have their history in being part of IT services, and we all know what IT services did to India. And at the time, it was great, and we really reaped the benefits for it. But it is a very pivotal time in the Indian industry as well, and media seems to be leading the way in a lot of fronts. And you are doing a lot of work on the forefront of education, especially in modern media. So I wanted you to shed some light on what your thoughts are in terms of education, in terms of how we develop the next wave of our of people who would be leading India in terms of employment. How are we going to reach that place where we get away from the grunt work and get into doing things that are far more interesting and innovative and lead instead of draining our talent?
Thanks for asking this question. I am really passionate about no, but I'm really passionate about this because I honestly feel that one of the disservices that we are doing to our intelligentsia or our next generation is that we are prepping them for jobs. I don't think that's what we should be doing at all. We should be prepping them for innovation and to reach their own potential. From a media business point of view, where we see the biggest opportunity or challenge is that today we as Indian consumers, and especially in gaming, that has been true since the past 15 years since I've been tracking it, that we as Indian consumers are used to global world-class products for free or near free, right? So even when e-gaming, the way we know it now, didn't exist, or massive multiplayer online platform was the new buzzword. $50 million plus was the minimum that would go into developing a game. Did India have the money or the potential to do it? No, because on a global stage we aren't servicing those games, and it's not possible to make money off a game in one region with that. So what did that lead to? That was one piece of data. The other piece of data is that Indians do love Chota Bheem. Indians do love, Shiva. That tends to do better than anything else that you can give them, right? Uh, the one thing we have to bring in is our culture of creativity, innovation, which is at par with the world. So two, three things that we are doing in the education sector, especially where with UPS where we're working. One is creating programs where the lines of coding, game development, and creative visualizations blur. Because today you cannot really create an environment, a media, any media ecosystem without actually understanding how the end product will get developed. The other thing that we are doing, and we're very proud of it, is that we're fundamentally walking away from this requirement of 10th class and 12th class pass out requirement. We are actually saying that if you have the creative talent, then you either have a portfolio to show, or you are willing to do a foundation year beyond whichever grade that you have decided to walk away from formal education from. And that foundation year preps you for a proper undergrad course, whether it is in the UX, or it's in VR, or it's in augmented reality, or whether it's in coding. And we will help you build a holistic perspective towards the industry. But I think the larger need for us is to invest in innovation, for the industry to come together and invest in tools that are democratizing the ability to create data visualization tools, data analytics, or even being able to create augmented reality and VX solutions. Because unless we create these democratized tools, which is going to bring down the cost of creating world-class games or world-class media solutions, we are not going to be able to compete. We cannot. So while we need to cater to the Indian audience first, we need to start thinking in a very innovative, breaking down the classic pyramid of education or even access to technology and funds.
It's very interesting. I'd be very interesting to hear. I'd be very interested to hear more about what you've been doing. Is there any, maybe we can talk about this a little later, but maybe there is if there is space that we can go read more about it, it'll be very helpful, and maybe the organizers can help us share this. Coming back to media as it is today and the future of media. What is your take on where the future is? I mean, I know that you're on the forefront of teaching and education, and you probably are going to start teaching all over again. I don't know, are you still teaching right now? Do you have teaching gigs? Yeah, you are. So, I mean, it's a different feeling, right? Being in front of, looking at fresh faces and talking to them, I'm pretty sure. And all of us are looking at what's happening in the media industry in terms of acquisitions, right? We have Geo kind of talking about acquiring Cred. We have PayPal sniffing around Pinterest for $45 billion. I don't even know how they came up with that valuation, but clearly that's how much Pinterest is worth to them. You have other companies who are sort of becoming super apps and sort of branching out. You have Ola with Prime and showing us content and so on and so forth. So seems like every company today is, and there was a rumor out on the street that Stripe is buying a media organization. So there's a lot of stuff happening right now. It's like a big wave that media is kind of experiencing in terms of even acquisition. What do you think is the future of media overall, right? Given the various places that you have your eyes on.
Okay, I'm going to try and answer it very simply so that there are some key takeaways. One is every company today looks at themselves as a data and entertainment company, okay, or a data and content company. Let me put it that way. Why are both of them the equivalent of our gravitational force or the binding factor? Once you have an engaged user in a digital environment, you could track their entire journey and help them through every decision of their life and help them either for searching, buying the services, or even delivering the services at the end of it. Which is why if you see all telco companies are buying entertainment companies are becoming financial companies, and financial companies are probably becoming e-commerce companies as well. From my point of view today, as I stand with Woot, there are three trends that I'm not willing to give up on. One is when I look at a unified view of my user, content commerce is going to be really big for me. How I enable that. Second is mobile screens will give way to connected TVs. Today, mobile screen has been the biggest story that we have seen from 2016 to 2021. But I'm quite sure 2023, 24, when we're sitting, we will be talking about at least 20%, if not more, sitting on connected TVs. And that experience is going to be completely different, because now you're talking about appointment viewing. Sorry, not appointment viewing, VOD-led viewing.
Yeah.
Yes. The third is podcasts, and audio products. Given our level of illiteracy, given our multilingual complexity, audio command-led smart products are going to proliferate the market, or your mobile phones will pivot and become that much more sophisticated for it. And the fourth, which I am very excited about.
You said three. Now this is fourth bonus.
Yeah, it's the bonus, is augmented reality.
Oh, of course.
I know it has failed many times and people have seen it coming, my sense is, given the amount of development that's going on in the US-Israel belt, which always is at the forefront of tech development, I feel given that OTTs are here to stay and CTV is going to become big, so will augmented reality. It's going to take viewing experience at home to a different level.
Very true, very true. I see a lot of kids today walking around with sets on their heads, and it's not that unusual anymore. The other day, my nephew was talking about live gaming and the fact that people who are watching the live game from home and watching the stadium could experience a lot of virtual reality and augmented reality through their screens. So yes, I think this has been an extremely enlightening conversation, Chanpreet. Thank you for covering everything I wanted to cover and patiently talking to us about what's happening in the industry, along with what you're doing in the education space. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for
And
having
thank
me
you,
here.
Nasdaq.
Thank you, Kavita and Charanpreet, for that powerful talk and taking us through the world of data and its impact on the M&A industry. Thanks so much once again.